Hi, and welcome to Answers for Kids, Lesson 25. What about the dinosaurs? Part 2. This is Dr. Nancy. Children have been fascinated by these ferocious beasts, and they're featured in movies and books. But the dinosaur has been used more than any other creature to promote the idea of millions of years and evolution and changing from one animal into another and no interaction with man. Last week, we started to look at the dinosaurs, where they came from. While the movies and secular world give us one view of the dinosaurs, the Bible paints a completely different picture. We introduced you to the 7 F's of dinosaur history. Do you remember what they were? Say them along with me. Formed, fearless, fallen, flood, faded, found, fiction. Last week, we looked at the first 4. Formed, God created flying reptiles and sea monsters on day 5 of creation. The land dinosaur animals and mankind were made on day 6. Fearless, since they were all vegetarians because they all ate herbs and fruits and vegetables, mankind had no need to fear them. Fallen, when Adam disobeyed God, sin brought a curse to the earth, including the animals. It was called death. Now some dinosaurs began to eat other ones too. Flood. Later, God brought a worldwide flood upon the earth to judge mankind, but put representatives of each kind of animal on the ark, along with Noah and his family. This included birds and flying reptiles and dinosaurs. The rest drowned. After the flood, Noah's descendants did not spread out and fill the earth as God had commanded, but instead they built a great tower to make a name for themselves and to worship false gods. What did God do to them? Right, he confused the languages of the people and they began to spread out around the world. Many of the people groups that spread out over the earth had stories that described their encounters with animals we now call dinosaurs or dinosaur-like today. Who remembers why the term dinosaur is not written in the Bible? It's because the term was not used until the 1800s, way after the Bible was written. However, they gave creatures names in the Bible like dragon or thunderbird or behemoth or leviathan instead of dinosaur. Remember how Job described behemoth? It's your memory verse from last week. Job 40, 15 through 17. Look now at the behemoth, which I made along with you. He eats grass like an ox. See now, his strength are in his hips and his power in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are tightly knit. Well, Job describes an animal called Leviathan. If you'll open your Bibles to Job 41, you can follow along as I read the description that Job gave to this sea creature. We call it today Chronosaurus. Can you draw out Leviathan with a hook or snare his tongue with a line that you lower? Can you put a reed in his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he make many supplications to you? Will he speak softly to you? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you take him as a servant forever? Will you play with him as a bird or put a leash on him for your maidens? Will your companions make a banquet out of him? Will they apportion him among the merchants? Can you fill his skin with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? Lay your hand on him, remember the battle, never do it again. Indeed, any hope of overcoming him is false. Shall one not be overcome at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that he would dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has preceded me? that I should pay him. Everything under heaven is mine. I will not conceal his limbs, his mighty power, or his graceful proportions. Who can remove his outer coat? Who can approach him with a double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face with his terrible teeth all around? His rows of scales are his pride, shut up tightly as with a seal. One is so near another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together and cannot be parted. His sneezing flashes like lightning, and his eyes are like the eyelids of morning. Out of his mouth go burning lights. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke goes out of his nostrils, as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame goes out of his mouth. Strength dwells in his neck, and sorrow dances before him. He folds on the flesh are joined together. They are firm on him and cannot be moved. His heart is as hard as a stone, even as hard as a lower millstone, because he raises himself up. The mighty are afraid, because as he crashes, they are beside themselves. Though a sword reaches him, it cannot avail, nor does a spear, a dart, or a javelin. He regards iron as straw and bronze as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Sling stones become like stubble to him. Darts are regarded as straw. He laughs at the threat of javelins. His undersides are like the sharp potsherd. He spreads pointed marks in the mire. He makes a deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment and leaves a shining wake behind him. One would think the deep had white hair. On earth there is nothing like him, which is made without fear. He beholds every high thing. He is king over all the children of pride. Now, the memory verse for this week is the first part of this. Can you draw out Leviathan with a hook or a snare, his tongue with a line which you lower? Can you put a reed through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? The Leviathan is mentioned in two other places, and you can look them up, Psalm 104 and Isaiah 27. See if you can look in that Psalm 104 and Isaiah 27 and find Leviathan. You know, other people groups also have their encounters with what may be called dinosaurs. For instance, the Australian Aborigine have described a creature they call bunyip. This refers to a dinosaur we have labeled. This is a bunyip, the drawing of what they had. And this is from the archaeology, Edmontosaurus, and it looks very similar. The Chinese people also have tales about dragons and such stories found around the world. As you can see here, it's in their architecture, it's in their parades. They have lots of stories of dragons. Other people groups draw pictures. These are pictures on stones found in Utah. For example, one people group drew a picture that looks similar to a dinosaur. Doesn't that look like a dinosaur? And another one drew one similar of a flying reptile. Doesn't that look like a pteranodon? Some people believe that dinosaurs eventually turn into birds. However, we know this is simply not true for a number of reasons. First, God created the birds on day 5, and on day 6, he created the land dinosaurs. They are made after their kind. Scientists also have found there's a huge difference in the lung structure of the dinosaur and the birds. Also, a big difference between scales and feathers. Do you remember another scientific reason that we find that animals stay within their kind just the way God made them? Yes, it's DNA. DNA is the unique information that is in every living thing, and it comes from parents and grandparents all the way back. In nature, no additional information can be added to DNA. They all are formed after their kind. Last week, we saw that the feathered dinosaurs that recently supposedly were discovered turned out to be bird fossils. The other feathered dinosaur that made the news turned out to be a fake made by man. Now, some people believe the dinosaurs disappeared when a giant asteroid or meteorite hit the Earth. In fact, the movie Dinosaur presents that idea. However, there are many scientific problems with this idea. So our fifth F is for faded. What happened to the dinosaurs? Well, they simply died out. They are no longer around. In fact, animals continue to go extinct even today. Some scientists have estimated that several species go extinct every day. There are several reasons that dinosaurs and animals may have died out over time. This could include the large change in seasons and climate, like after the flood, lack of food resources, being hunted by man, or just unable to adapt in their new world. What happened when one story is passed on to another person over a long period of time? Well, the stories change, don't they? And that's what happened with man's stories of the dinosaurs. They faded away. Man's encounters with dinosaurs faded into memory. They turned into myths, legends of dragons. We don't know when the last dinosaur died out, but it was probably in the Middle Ages when we had many stories of knights killing dragons, like the story of St. George. But again, dragons were mentioned in the Bible. Here are just two places. In Jeremiah 51:37, and Babylon shall become heaps and the dwelling place of dragons, an astonishment and an hissing without a habitation. Isaiah 34:13, and thorns shall come up from her palaces, nettles and brambles in the fortresses thereof, and it shall be a habitation of dragons and a court of owls. Now you can look in your concordance under dragons and see if you can find other places. So the fifth F is faded, but found. The next F is for dinosaur history was found again. It was in the 1700s when dinosaur bones were first found, but it wasn't until 1841 when the term dinosaur was used to describe these animals. It meant fierce lizards. Many people believe that these animals lived and died out millions of years ago before man was on this earth. But the Bible tells us that they lived and died along with man, and it was only a few thousand years ago. The last F, fiction. As we discussed, many scientists today have invented stories about dinosaur history based on evolution rather than the Bible. They tell us that dinosaurs lived and died out millions of years ago, and that they evolved into birds. But these stories are not true, they're just fiction. It can be fun to watch movies and read books about dinosaurs, but we need to think carefully about what we are learning, and we need to have the Bible as our foundation of our thinking in everything, even dinosaurs. For more information about dinosaurs, you can go to the website Answers in Genesis Kids Teachers Resources. Scroll down to chapter 24 and look up the article on dinosaurs. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at toolkitministries@yahoo.com. This ends lesson 25, and I can't wait to see you on lesson 26.